All right, joining us now here and in the circle at D1 Softball Powered by 643. She is, when you think Tulsa softball, you think of her. She lives and breathes and bleeds Tulsa softball. She was a player standout there. She was an assistant coach, an associate head coach, and of course has been the head coach at Tulsa since 2020. I speak of Crissy Strimple, who's kind enough to join us once again for the second year in a row. How you doing?
I'm doing good. The fall's been fun. We've had great weather and just a ton of great energy, and things have been good all the way from practices to recruiting to just life in general. And just kind of like you said, Tulsa is one of my favorite places. So just been enjoying this process with this group this year.
Well, let's talk about this group because you've got some players on the team that you probably a year ago at this time didn't think you would have on your roster back, like a Maci Cole and a Maura Moore and a Claire Skaggs because they get the extra year. Just talk about that process because I know that you were involved in that and tried to find out whether the player gets the extra year with junior colleges and things like that. Just tell the audience that may not be aware of that process and how you were able to get some of these players back for an extra year.
Yeah, I mean, kind of followed along with the Pavia case just because again, like I played JUCO also, and so you just kind of kept up with some of the stories that were coming across, but then also knowing that we have some athletes here that are, coming from 2 year, and what a gift, those players were given. And I think I called, both Mara, Macy, and even Alexa Hopkins.
Yeah.
And in December, and you just kind of explaining if they had heard anything about it and kind of what the case meant and what the possibilities were with it. And immediately ecstatic. Those three girls are planners, right? So they had, this is it. This is my last year. We're going, full throttle for this, and they had big plans. Like, Macy is coming back to finish, to finish her engineering degree. And what would that look like? She's got a job lined up for the second semester. What would that look like? Mara has been accepted into PT school. She already had been accepted, was moving back home, and she kind of had some life plans, going forward. And so it was probably in my head, I was going to call them, and they're like, yes, absolutely, this is happening. We're coming back. But there was definitely some conversations that needed to happen with those ladies, and what that might look like, what that might feel like, and just some transitions too with the roster and how we wanted to manage that. But at the end of the day, you could tell their heart was here, and they were just excited for it. And I think even, forward thinking, looking at the type of year that we had, I think they're even more poised, for this year. And honestly, probably a little bit more motivated, than what they were. I mean, those are three highly motivated athletes. But to bring back a player like Macy, to bring back a player like Mara, Alexa gives some teams in our conference fits. With what she does on the mound is a huge bonus to our staff. It's a huge bonus to our team. Experience is irreplaceable in my opinion, but and they're just like good humans at the end of the day to be around. And so it's right now, right? Like that's like 1 year thing. So I keep telling them all the time, like, you're gifted that. And I always tell them too, like, hey, did you watch football? That Pavia guy was he's like a Heisman candidate. So just so you're paid attention and thanking that gentleman for pushing that case through. So,
No doubt. He's definitely made a big impact and having a great year at Vanderbilt. He's taking advantage there.
oh yeah.
So as a coaching staff, though, I'm so fascinated by this because as you're kind of trying to figure this out, do you have to have like multiple plans? Like, hey, here's plan A if they're back. Here's plan B if they're not back. Here's plan C if maybe one or two of them are back. Like, what's that like? How do you evolve on that as this is going on?
Sure, but I think you do that every year just because, recruiting and roster management is constantly evolving. You always think that, okay, this is what your team's going to look like, the next year. And you'll have a little attrition, you'll have a little bit of I mean, we had a girl that had to medically retire this year, and a kid that, we wish all the best, but medically, like, she just had to, hang it up. And so you just never know what each year is going to bring. And we had definitely the opportunity, the space, and we were going to make it work, regardless. I think that's kind of on my job, to do as coaching. But a lot of conversations with our administration about, what those players, with the support staff behind them, what those players will mean, to our program. and how valuable an extra year with them will mean, especially with, bringing Clara back after a medical. Just how important those players are going to be to lead, some of the younger players that are still here.
Well, let's talk about this team. Let's start with the pitching because you get Maura and Alexa back. As you mentioned there to the pitching staff. How big is that to have that experience back? And then who are the other arms that will obviously complement them this year?
Yeah, Maura Moore, and who's been fantastic this fall. This is probably the best I've seen her, and in a good way. Like, you can see determination in her eyes, but you also see her going a step beyond as far as leading some of the freshmen that are here. So I've been proud of her. I don't think she gave up but one earned run this entire fall. I think, we challenged some things for her as varying her pitches, and just been happy to see her do that. I think she's got some built-in confidence, with it. And so I'm excited to see her take the mound. But, even Alexa, I think, coming from a JUCO, and then I'll go ahead and throw Brindley Maples in there. I think she's taken, 3 steps forward. She's a powerful human. Just what she did the last month is probably under talked about, just because of trying to figure her out a little bit and what's going to be her best weapons. But what she did for us the last month of season was invaluable. And even the steps that she's taken this fall physically, mentally, I would have said she was a little bit of a thrower last year, and now I see her being a little bit more, not too much overthinking, but I see her being a pitcher, this fall. And man, she went home and put some work in. Alexa went down to the Texas League, and played a little bit. And so to have 3 seniors leading your staff is huge. I think every coach in the country is going to want an older pitching staff. You'd be crazy not to want that. But been happy with those 3 players. They've been great this fall. Their work ethic, their dedication's been outstanding. And then, we added some depth with 2 freshmen, so we've got 3 seniors, and then boom, we're back down to 2 freshmen. And both of them are kind of as cool as a cucumber. They just come in, work. They're different. One's a 6 foot, right-handed, got some good pitches that go up and down with her, but nothing phases her. I mean, she's had an outing this fall where I thought she had a tough outing, and she was like, I'm fine. That was terrible. I'll come back. I'll bounce back. Just did not skip a beat and just put her head down and go back to work. So, I think she's going to throw a lot of innings for us this year. And then, we brought in a left-handed pitcher, Izzy Arroyo, who just is different. What she does from the left side and giving us that look, that's valuable, to our pitching staff. Has just been awesome to see. And, we've been throwing those girls, giving everybody a start in our fall games, giving everybody, a ton of innings throughout our scrimmages. And they definitely have impressed us. They've impressed their teammates. You want your girls in the circle to have the confidence of their teammates around them. And again, they're great humans. I could say that about all 19 athletes on my team right now. They're just outstanding human beings. And those 5 have really kind of clicked together, with they kind of come in as a unit. They like to work out together on certain days that they can. And it's just been fun to watch their maturation, especially the 2 freshmen.
Is this the deepest pitching staff you've had since you've been the head coach there?
Yeah, I think, when we were running with, Shanice and Cassidy, and
yeah,
you felt really confident and throwing a lot of different looks, with them. But yeah, I mean, with Brindley and Maura, yeah, Alexa is like, she's an outstanding closer. She's tough to hit. She throws a couple different speeds, and she's very confident, in that role. And then to add the lefty, she's athletic. She might be the fastest kid on our team. And so she is just athletic and does a great job, off the mound. And then, having the other pitchers just very, very confident, played on a great travel ball organization. Kinsey Freeman, Gatorade Player of the Year, her junior year in high school in the state of Arkansas. And so, yeah, like I'm excited about those 5 players and what they'll bring to our team, what they mean to our team.
Plus, having those 3 seniors, it allows you to kind of develop those freshmen at whatever pace. You don't have to rush them, in other words.
Exactly.
And also at the same time, it sounds to me like you don't have to overthrow more like you've had to do maybe in the past, where you would maybe extend her innings more than maybe you would like in theory. Now it seems like you've hit that balance.
Yeah, I really believe right now that I feel like we can go out and give a couple different looks to some of the teams that we play. You know, the first month of season is always the most interesting, right? With the 5 games a weekend and trying to play some matchups, but hoping everybody comes back in shape and playing the matchups and making it through those 4 weekends. But I do agree with you, like depth wise. I feel like there's a lot of different ways that we can go about these weekends. I'm excited to see it at the end of the day.
Well, that's the way the game is. You need as many different looks and arms. Certainly. I mean, I remember Amy Kreger covering her. You could lean on, you give her the ball once and then she'd take over. Of course, that's why she was just recently named on the D1 softball quarter century
Yep.
list for best
Yeah.
pitchers. But the game's changed a little bit. But then again, if you had Amy Kreger now, maybe you wouldn't have to worry about it as much. How good was Amy Kreger? For those that don't know, for the record,
Oh,
she was incredible, and I was happy to see that she made that list. Which obviously
one,
on the staff
yeah,
there.
generational talent. I think what, the gifts that she was given and what she was able to do. I mean, I was kind of not joking about this, but she's got over 1,000 strikeouts in her career. When are we going to see that again? I mean, when are we going to see pitchers that were throwing, well over 280 pitches, 280 innings a year? That's just kind of unheard of because hitters have become, great. But, what Amy did in her 4 years, at Tulsa and then beyond, getting to play beyond. I mean, she's a generational talent and she's in the Hall of Fame here. So, I mean, yeah, like her name's all over our record board. Our girls come in and they know who Amy Kreger is. They see the strikeouts, they see the wins. Her and Emily Watson are just written all over that,
Yes.
record board. And the cool thing about it is they're still very much involved, with our program. I still have conversations with those two ladies. Emily's been to a couple games. Amy and her father and her mom will come up to several games a year. They're just very much involved in the program still.
That's the thing. One of the things that have impressed me about your program, you've been able to win with that ace, that dominant pitcher, but you've also done it with staffs as well, with multiple arms, and have been able to adapt to that. What is that like to adapt to? Hey, okay, this is what we have. We don't have as much depth pitching wise. We're going to ride this particular pitcher as a horse. Certainly, they're talented, but then there's other years where you're like, no, we got depth. Let's use that, because that's not easy to. Sometimes some coaches like to just stick to a formula, but you've all been able to adapt. How?
I think just I mean, maybe that's the life a little bit of a mid-major is you are trying to find athletes and develop them and try to make them as best as you can. I think it's easy to go out and recruit and see, put a radar up and see, 68 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour. I think everybody, my mom can go out, and pick those players out. But we've just always done a good job of developing athletes here and finding out what their strengths are and just really embellishing those strengths. I don't know that we've ever focused so much on weaknesses, more so just like what do you do well, what's going to make you the best. I mean, I think about a Caitlin Seal, that is a completely different pitcher, than Amy Kreger and Emily Watson, and was very successful, won a championship here, pitched us to a championship game and then finally came across, and won a championship for us. And the style that Jackie Lawrence, no different. She was another pitcher that was here that was, mid 60s, but down. Amy was 70 and up. Emily was both. So, yeah, I think that I was just thankful to be a part of those teams on the coaching staff and just see what it takes. And I mean, I reflect on those teams all the time and not getting caught up in what we're not, but getting caught up in what we can be and then trying to put those girls in positions to be as strong as possible for your program.
Offensively, of course, you mentioned Maci Cole. What a year. 10 home runs, 27 RBIs, 316 average, 8 steals, a breakout for her. What did you see from her last year as she took that step, and now she gets another year and comes back to be part of this offense?
I think you're always excited when you walk into in the summer months and you hear balls getting batted up against the net, out in the cages, and 9 times out of 10 I'm walking out there, it's Maci Cole, calling anybody and everybody. Former assistant here and Sandra Owens calling her, hey, come toss to me, give me some reps, like just putting her head down and working because like that girl does not accept mediocrity. At the end of the day, like she does not want to be average, and she's definitely not going to give you an average effort. So, just to see her kind of goes back to what we do here as coaches. Like our process works. Sometimes it takes 6 months, sometimes it takes a year. For these girls to really, start to hit their stairs and peak, for a player. But I don't think she's done yet. And I think if we can continue to surround her and protect her a little bit more with some other good bats, some other threats in the lineup, that I think she can even have, a better season than what she did. I mean, in the conference, being the first team all conference at shortstop, that's tough. There's some great players, in this conference that she was going up against. And so just happy to see her have that success and know that, hey, that work wasn't for nothing. It definitely paid off, but you can go further. And I think that, with this year, her, Clara, Mara, I mean, those girls have just done a good job of really understanding getting another year and what that means, and being excited and not it's almost like they're kind of past that senioritis,
Yeah.
that nervousness of, oh my gosh, okay, we dealt with that, we did that. And so they just have been great leaders and mentors to our players.
Yeah, I mean, all conference. I mean, I thought she was one of the best players in the American. Probably should have gotten mentioned more in consideration for Player of the Year. Maybe if the season was a little, went a little different, maybe she would have. But it's exciting, I think, for the league, not necessarily for the opponent coaches, but for the league and for you,
Yeah.
obviously, to have her back in the league, as well as Clara Skaggs, who was limited to 19 games last year due to injury. You're going to get asked a lot about this between now and February, so I'll be probably one of the first to ask you, how is she doing, and what can we expect from her?
She's doing good. I think, for her, like she just plays with so much passion. I mean, just a true, true love for the game. And, in fact, I think she wants to get into coaching, when she's finished playing. She gives her all to her teammates. She gives her all to the game of the sport. So, losing her last year was definitely tough. Not only her production, I mean, obviously that's pretty clear to see, right? But just what she meant to the team as far as a leader, and just how much passion she plays with, and the consistency that she gives you. But excited to have her back. She's kind of going through a couple things right now because I tell her all the time, like, hey, when you play as hard as you do, sometimes you got to recover too. And she's just kind of shakes her head. But I mean, if she's training and lifting, she's gonna lift hard. If she's running, she's gonna run her hardest. If she's swinging a bat, she's gonna swing her hardest. She can play at a different level, and it's like watching a kid come down from a high because she just plays and practices at such a high level. But yeah, like to know that you're going to poke her back in your lineup this year, and we're talking about protection for some of our other hitters. I mean, she provides it, and just her maturation from her freshman year to her senior year is huge. She's seen it. She's seen the speed at this level. She's not phased by much. She expects a lot out of herself, but her and Macy are pretty similar creatures, at the end of the day when they step on the softball field. But I think just two people leading this program, and just happy to see Claire. I'd like her to get her a little bit stronger than where she is right now, but we're on the uphill of that. So in fact, I'll get to hit with her again tomorrow, and she's just happy to be holding a ball in her hand and a bat in her hand, and getting after it.
That's got to be exciting too, to have Skaggs and Cole in this lineup that, maybe a year ago you didn't think you would have it at this point, or it's got to be exciting with some other young talent that you have on this lineup. Because I remember a year ago we spoke, you mentioned it was a young offense, a young roster that you kind of had to build from scratch, basically, because you lost some
Mm-hmm.
pieces from the year before with graduation. So you had to, you went through some growing pains, I think, in part because of that last year, and not to mention you lose Skaggs and limit only to 19 games. Talk about some of the other hitters and players that have kind of taken that step and grown, and maybe even some new faces.
Yeah, I think, another player that we didn't have last year, just didn't bounce back from surgery the way that we hoped she did, was Emma Vickery. And, we plugged her in the fall, and I ended up moving her, up to the 3 and the 4 hole. I mean, she just kept giving us powerful, consistent at bats. And so there's another player that, we just didn't have as a part of our staff, our team last year anyways. And I think she's going to give you a great at bat, every time that she's in the box, and she's got a powerful right-handed swing for us, which will be much needed behind Clara. But like Amber Turner, a freshman, played a lot of softball for us last year, and actually she ended up catching almost 99% of our games. And she was probably a player that came in that caught 50% of her high school or her travel ball games. So it was more of a secondary position for her, and she kind of had to learn a lot on the fly, last year. And I thought honestly she did a great job. Us throwing different pitchers at her, and then what she started to do offensively. I just think with her coming back, Annika Deal coming back, putting them into some positions that I think they're going to be a little bit more comfortable, are going to be huge weapons to have. I mean, Elle Rouse was probably a surprise. I think when I looked up her top 75 stats, last year she hit above 300 against the top 75 RPI. That was huge. And she gave us some quality clutch at bats. And they're all in competition right now because there's some freshmen that are here, that are pushing them. You've got a freshman in Mackenzie Glenn. Matt Glenn is what we call her, who's pushing some of these upperclassmen for some spots. Left-handed hitter with some thump behind her. She had a fantastic fall, for us. Malia Kabuyaban, she's come in and she's had a fantastic fall for us. We got a JUCO transfer from McLennan, Texas, who's she's going to walk up to the plate at 5 feet tall, but she's banging the ball off the wall, and then she'll put a bunt down. I mean, she's a fun player to watch and covers a ton of ground in the outfield. We kind of call her Peanut, but you can imagine why. And it's just been fun. I mean, we've put a bunch of different lineups out there, and let these girls go. And I don't know that we ever skipped a beat. I have a tough decision to make, moving into February about who's going to be that best nine. But they definitely have put some question marks in my head with what the freshmen have done coming in. But then just having these returners, Maci, Clara, Annika, Amber, Elle, just some of these girls that have come back. Faith Russell has been outstanding, this fall. She's probably led the way average, wise, for our team, and just has kind of upped her game a little bit, from the previous year. And so I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody, but it's been so fun to watch. We've got some good arms behind the plate. We've got we needed to get better in the outfield. We brought in some strong outfield, some girls with some good arms. And so I'm just excited to see that kind of take place within our system and go attack. I think we'll shock some people with just how much more athletic we're going to be this year versus what we were last year.
Athletic and depth. It sounds like you have some depth that you didn't have last year. When I mean depth, everybody has numbers and everything, but it's one thing to have depth and experience and versatility. It sounds like you have that maybe you didn't have a year ago.
Yes. I mean, we went into some fall games and we kind of shuffled, people around defensively, whether we were putting Tui at shortstop, a freshman Presley Ray to get some experience there. And then Maci and I felt like we played great defense. Outfield wise, they were running around making diving catches, and it kind of made the next man up. Like, okay, I'm going to go make a good play. I'll celebrate that, but I'm going to go make a next play. But, heck, another kid I really haven't talked about is Dea Moses, from a very successful 2-year program in Grayson, Community College. And she's been outstanding to have. Plus, it's nice to have 6 feet standing at first base sometimes. But big lefty hitter that runs well. And so there's probably 15 hitters that are putting some question marks in my mind about how am I going to fit all these 15 in that 9-person lineup.
Wow, that's pretty good. That's a deep deal. And then that also obviously will impact the defense, which is so big at Tulsa. I mean, as long as I follow your program, and I remember I've worked with Bruce Howard. Defense is the key. How do you feel about your defense in that regard going into this year?
Yeah, I think, and I'll just kind of start it like this. We ended the year last year and we really just I did a ton of self-reflecting, for probably about a month. And then we sat down as coaches and did a lot of, reflecting on, what were things that we did well, where are we going to improve, what have we flat out got to get better at? And I just felt like we didn't put a consistent brand of ball out, day in and day out. And it does start with defense. Hitting's flashy. You got to have it. You got to have an offense that can score at any time. If you want to be up in the top of this conference, but it does start with defense, and I think being able to get Clara back has been huge. But even some of the freshmen, like Malia has pushed Clara a little bit more, like, right, like you got a kid right behind you, but then they've just done a good job of like, I don't want to skip a beat, right? Just because I'm out here, I don't want this defense to look less than what it did when maybe the starters were in front of me. And so I really think they've kind of taken that identity. We did a lot more with numbers. We talked a lot about defensive efficiency this fall. We talked a lot about, every fall game, what did we feel that where we every ball in play, did we get 75% or more out? And so, we really went into more of like an analytical part of it,
Sure.
on top of some of the things. And I think that, these girls are so much more into numbers than maybe what we were 10 years ago. And I think that kind of hit home, with some of the players. But yeah, defensively, we can fly around a little bit. We'll go make plays. There's not a day I'm at practice where there's not amazing diving play happening in the outfield. There's not a day at practice where we're doing some form of live and we're not turning a double play. And so they're just finding ways to make some big plays. And at the end of the day, like, we come back in January, it's going to start with the consistency. And then, we've got a couple things that we talk about, like do what we do, but two of those things are make big plays, don't give up big plays. And so that's been something that we've kind of preached, all fall too. So it's been fun. I mean, these girls are, I think it's going to be an exciting defensive brand that we're going to put out on the field again, because that is important to us.
No, it's always has. When your championship teams and teams have been to NCAA's, you've been at the top of usually in the league in defense. And when I noticed the numbers last year, it's kind of was prepping. I was like, oh, that's not like very Tulsa like. And I could tell. And so is that what caused you the self reflection there? Because you could probably sensed that as you were reflecting there as the year was going on last year.
Yeah, you just, I think when you have a tough year, I mean, we can sit here and talk about the players that we didn't have in the lineup, but that's not fair to the kids that come in every day and put work in that are here. And I don't think any one of us were satisfied. And so I know like we were getting better towards the end of the year. I felt like we were playing. I mean, you always want to end stronger, right, than what you
Sure.
start. But I just thought we were just inconsistent. So yeah, like it starts with me at the top. We're going to go back and take a look at what did we do? What were some of the, practices that we had that led up to this, and where can we just outright get better? And I think that starts with some of the freshmen that we brought in, and then some of the transfers, that we brought in, just to kind of shore up some areas that either one, we just need to get more competitive at day in and day out. I think, at times we had uh, too many injuries where people just couldn't go last year. And so, like, okay, like you got these 9 players healthy, ready to go. Like, let's go at it. And fatigue set in a little bit. Some of the lack of experience definitely showed up on, times. And I just think we put too much unneeded, it's not pressure, but just too much on some of these young girls' plates last year. But all the experience that they got, all the experience that they learned from a long season. I mean, we talk about it. I think they understand it. And I think it just showed up day one when we came back in fall. The other thing is we kind of decided that we were going to spend 20% of our time talking about our goals. And I think like at the end of the day, you still got to be good at softball. You got to be able to throw, you got to catch. I mean, you got to be good at the skills that the game needs. So we spend about 80% of our time locked in on that, but we probably took 20% this fall of our hours, talked about our goals, talked about our team culture, talked about accountability, talked about briefly, the parts that we felt like we could be better at from last year, and then moved on because this is a whole different team. And I think that's helped. I think that's allowed people more voice, in our locker room. And I think we just feel closer than ever. I don't know that we've been tested yet. You're waiting for that big test to happen, but and I think, just girls, when they like each other, they'll start fighting for each other a lot more. And that's kind of what you've seen out on the softball field.
Well, I would imagine with players like Maura and Skaggs and the ones that have been here since the freshman years, and there's that hunger. I remember being there in person when you made that run to the championship game in 2023, when one game away from a championship in an NCAA tournament berth. 24, you were in the bubble for the NCAA. I would imagine there's some hunger from that group that think, hey, we got some unfinished business now, and we've got this year to do it. Do you sense that from your veterans?
Yeah, I think the older girls feel more confident than talking about that a little bit more. And, one thing that we've talked about, sometimes you got to say it out loud, but action's got to back it up. But don't be afraid to say what you want out loud. You want to go fight for a conference championship, let's go fight for it. Let's talk about it. Why are we getting up at 6:30 in the morning? Why are we doing this 4 days a week and getting after it? And so, I think the older girls have probably sat down together and kind of talked about like what do we want, out of this year with this group of 19 players that we have, and then giving them the space within some of our leadership meetings that we've had to talk about past successes, and then how they've dealt with failures. And I think we've just done a better job with even the freshmen of like, hey, you might fail, it's okay. Like, it's going to happen at some point. You're going to go 0 for 3 in a game. It's going to happen. And there's just been better communication, better locker room talk, which kind of leads to, I'm not talking like over positivity or anything like that, but it just, I think we've got intent, behind like why we're doing some of the things that we're doing, and maybe just more direct with it. And it does start from me and the coaching staff, but those seniors have been outstanding of just like not letting anybody forget what we're here for and what we're trying to accomplish.
Couple last things. The American was the fifth best conference in college softball last year, according to the RPI. Just talk about this league. You've been in this league now for a decade. It's always been right up there. It's always been consistently multiple bid league. How do you feel about the league overall? And I would imagine as coaches talking to somebody who is, you're not satisfied with just being a 2-bid league. You want to be a 3-4 bid league.
Yeah, I think there was some disappointment, with where we ended up as far as teams representing us in the American, and just talking with some of the coaches, over the summer. I think we all view ourselves. We know how hard it is, on the weekends, and this conference is like top to like you've got somebody's got a pitcher on every team that can hold you down. I think obviously like South Florida, he does a great job with this team right now. They won it last year at their place, or at least the tournament they won. FAU, she's been putting a great team out there. They're competitive. They get after it. They're athletic. Wichita State, I think, just talking with Coach Bredbender, and they got some things over there that I know that she's excited about. But I mean, even just being out and watching Memphis and their approach and what she's been doing on the recruiting trail, like I think she's excited for this year to keep improving their athleticism. And for us at Tulsa, like we don't want to be a middle of the pack team. Like we want to try and work our way back to the top, because this league should be getting more than 2 in. I think that's the reputation that it has. And so we're going to do our part to keep it strong, on our end, and be as competitive, or take it, try to take it from everybody. But yeah, I think I was a little shocked, that maybe we couldn't sneak that third team in, because I do think we are a tough league, with just some of the groups. I mean, heck, Charlotte had a great year. I don't think anybody predicted, what type of year that they had, and they ended up having a great year. I think got player of the year on their team, and she's returning. So it's a tough league, 100%.
Conference tournament will be in Greenville this year, which you have some good memories from. I believe 2017, when you won the championship there that year, if I remember correctly. I was there. I should remember.
Yeah. Yeah, I like Greenville. I think they got a beautiful complex. I love our players talk about all the time when they go there. They love the look, of the facility when we go there. But yeah, I mean we're excited for that. That's a little bit down the road for us, but and it's kind of a good trip for us. I think we end with Charlotte, and we'll just go ahead and stay out east, so we're not going to have to travel, back and forth. But yeah, they, East Carolina does a great job. All the schools really that's hosted the conference tournament have done a great job and tried to make it feel like a big deal to these players when they step there. But The one and done, the starting early, I mean, that puts some added pressure on you. And so you want to try to put yourself in the conversation a lot sooner than waiting till a conference tournament. That will probably be our goal this year, is try to get in that conversation a lot sooner.
No doubt. And like I said, I just brought it up because you have some fond memories there. You've had some good memories for the program there. And, talking to the other coaches too is schedule strength that you all have talked about, all of you playing tough schedules. I mean, you've been at the forefront of that. So I would imagine you have another tough non-conference schedule this year. But just talk about the scheduling formula, because that's also been a big part of the, I know, talking points among the coaches in the league.
Yeah, I was fortunate to have been a part of one of the committees, that regionally kind of, check out different teams. And you learn a lot when you're a part of some of those committees of just what gives you the bonus points, what's going to lose you. I mean, everybody knows you don't want bad losses. You want to continue to have great losses, and then trying to find a way to steal some of those top 15 wins is for mid majors, I think, is where you definitely have to live. And you just, you can't have a bad loss, when you're playing. Scheduling though, we're not going to do what we did last year, where we had, I think, like the top 5 teams within the first the first month and 2 weeks of season. But we're going to play good teams. I mean, I'm in an area where you got Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, and so we're going to play good teams throughout the year. But we've got some Big 12 teams on our schedule. We've got an ACC team on our schedule. We've got a Pac or a Big 10 team, on our schedule, and so I'm excited about those. And we got to go show our best when we get to play those teams. We're going to stay a little bit more local, headed down to UL to start out the year, and then kind of play between McNeese and UL down there, and then head south to UTA, where we got some good opponents that are going to be in that tournament that we got to be ready to go for, and then down to Tarleton. I think they finished second, in their conference last year.
Might be the favorite this year too. Yeah.
Yeah, I know they got a good pitching staff that they're excited about to return. And so, and then there's some good teams that are going to be in that tournament for us as well before coming back home. Now, probably the big one on our list early is going to be Nebraska, is going to come here and play us. But yeah, just at the end of the day, like, I never wanted to get in and not play anybody that wasn't going to test us. And you like to kind of see how you match up with the best. And we've always done that at Tulsa, and tried to go compete against some of these top tier programs. And I'm excited to do that again this year. And, hopefully you sneak up and you take one of those.
Should be fun. That's going to be a good one there.
Yeah.
It's going to be good. Look forward to hearing. Hopefully Bruce Howard calls some of those. That'll be fun. My good friend there for a long time. Before I let you go here, you mentioned the schedule. How we're going to open with. What are you looking forward to finding out about this group once you get going? That you think it'll be a big key in learning about this team, and maybe some questions that'll help define this team in 26.
I think, just, well, one, who's going to be that 9 that we roll with, consistently. Like I said, I feel like there's a lot of people, pushing each other for starting positions. We've had a pretty good, fall season. We've tested ourselves some, and just, it's been a good fall season. I don't know that we've had a lot of adversity, and it will come, right? Tough games you're going to play. And I just want to see, as tough as I think we are, will we stay that tough? Because it's been fun to watch these girls accept some of the challenges that we've done this fall, and take them head on. And I mean, we're hitting PRs every day in the weight room. We just did some, 20-yard home to first times, and we hit some PRs today. And so as tough as I think we are, I want to see that show up, come February 6th.
That is Tulsa head coach Crissy Strimple joining us here on In the Circle on D1 Softball. Coach, good to have you back again. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Good luck this year. I know we'll cross paths at some point, hopefully, but in the meantime, be safe, and thanks for always taking care of us and talking to us here on In the Circle.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Eric, and just love what you guys do for our sport.